Hello, and welcome to Voices of Leadership. I'm Kathy Eastwood, your host and the CEO of E equals Y. AI is moving fast, faster than most organizations can keep up with. And what it really creates is pressure. Pressure to move quickly, to make decisions with incomplete information, and to build something real while the ground is still shifting. The question is not what AI can do, it's how leaders can keep up with the pace without breaking their teams, their strategy, or their business. Today, we're going to talk about what it actually takes to lead in that kind of environment. So, before I introduce my guest today, please let us know where you're dialing in from. It's an opportunity to network. You can put your LinkedIn post, but more importantly, ask us questions. We are excited to answer what's top of mind for you. So our guest today is someone that I have known for a lot of years. We're not going to put the number now, Jags, but Jags Kandasamy is the CEO of Latent AI, where he is building technology designed to operate in a real world environment where performance and constraints are non-negotiable. Jags and I actually met back at HPE, and what I've always respected is how he approaches building and scaling. He doesn't just focus on innovation, he's focused on what works, what scales, and what delivers. And he is leading a growing company. I don't know if I'm not allowed to share the growth numbers, but you told me before we came on, and they were impressive. And he's constantly navigating real trade-offs around growth, capital, and talent while operating in one of the fastest moving spaces we've seen. Jags, welcome. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Kathy. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here, and I was surprised with your invite. Glad to be of help here.
Absolutely. So let's start. Why don't you tell our audience about Latent AI and what you guys are focused on?
Absolutely. So at Latent AI, we are focused on bringing AI to the edge. Edge is basically anywhere that the data is getting converted from analog to digital, right? Think of your sensors, your cameras, your microphones, and temperature sensors, infrared sensors, whatever sensor that is collecting data from the environment to understand the environment. We are bringing intelligence to that layer. So obviously, that level of intelligence is required for defense applications, and we are currently 100% defense focused, but we are a dual use technology. Our technology can be applied in the physical AI world as well as in the defense AI world, right? We bring intelligence to submarine drones, unmanned aerial systems, and unmanned ground systems and stuff like that, right? So we are bringing intelligence, and everybody asks me the question, right? Like, why did you choose the name latent, right? Like, people confuse it with latency because that's the easiest, closest relevant name that people associate with. But latent is basically that hidden layer, that latent meaning the latent potential, right? That is the latent AI. Everywhere we have a compute available, every device, like, if we look around ourselves, right, like there are so many devices that have compute in them. Our goal is to bring intelligence to those devices. That is the latent potential that you have around, and that's why we want to bring AI to this, and that's why we call ourselves Latent AI.
I love it. Now, Jags, you started this business 7 years ago, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
And that's way before, like, I think sometimes our audience here may think AI is really like a couple years old, but it's been around a lot longer than that, right?
It has. Actually, my company that I left after HPE in 2016, when I went and joined AutoSense, um, uh, we were doing human hearing automation. So that was the first AI that we actually pushed to the edge. We would listen to sound and make sense of it. So I've been like, I'm surprised myself. I've been working in AI for 10 years now, right?
Yeah.
We were using it for predictive maintenance, right? Like we were on Delta Airlines. We will listen to the auxiliary power unit on the airplane and identify if there is a failure happening or not, predictively, just using sound. Right?
Yeah.
Like any good mechanic always uses a sound. That's basically what we had automated. So from there on, like getting into Latent was the next step after we sold the company, right? So 10 years now.
Yeah, and that's impressive. So you've been building products using AI technology. And I'm guessing you've also seen them bringing AI in to run the business as well. So I think you've had an interesting mix of how AI can help you in your leadership style.
Absolutely. So the earlier parts of, like, even today, right? Like, we are using AI to serve our customers, and we are providing them an AI capability that they can take it forward, either build a product within themselves or solve a certain operational issue on their end, right? So it's always about outcomes that we are driving. Then in the recent years, right, like probably in the last 2 to 3 years, as we saw OpenAI and Anthropic and the LLM wave come in, the generative AI wave come in, we started to look at that more closely for our operational efficiency. Can you believe I have only 2 people in my marketing team? They perform the work of 10 people
Mm,
because of AI, because the way we are applying AI to this. Right? It is always about, we are not trying to replace people, but we are trying to see how we can make each one a superhuman.
yep. They're
Right?
doing more, right? Because now not just asking people to do more, but you're giving them tools to be able to do more, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And then on the engineering side as well, right? If you think about it, we have a lean staff. We've been always very capital efficient in the way we operate. And our engineers are now being provided those tooling that they can multiply themselves in productivity. We have engineers, like, yeah, in a startup, you work late nights and weekends. That's a normal thing. But now they are not just working late nights and weekends, they are actually working 2 weeks worth of work within a week.
Yeah.
Right? That's
So you're able to bring
productivity.
the product to market a lot quicker, right?
Exactly.
With that capability. So as the CEO of a company, right? And there's everything's moving so quickly now. So that's great. You can cut it down from 2 weeks to a week, but that means you got to be on top of it, right? And so the speed of which decisions need to be made, and the cost of getting it wrong could be hard. So how do you as a CEO really think about how to make those decisions quickly without having the cost of making the wrong decisions?
Look, you're going to make mistakes. As a human being, you're going to make mistakes. There's no two ways about it. The way we approach it is like everything that we do is an experiment. We call
Mm,
America is an experiment in its 250th year, right? Similarly, everything that we do in the company is an experiment. Once you frame it as an experiment, people themselves have a different frame of mind for it. They're okay with trying things. They're okay with failing. They're okay with, like not invested emotionally into it. That is where the challenge comes, right? Like, you set a priority, you set a project, and you go on. People are emotionally involved, and the moment you say, like, okay, this is not working, we're going to sunset it, and there is like a withdrawal syndrome that comes in with that. So all of that gets avoided with this framing of an experiment. We set this as an experiment, and when you set something as an experiment, you're setting the criteria for it. N equals 5 is the number of customers that we're going to reach out to. And if we get 30% positive rate, then we will move on to the next stage of the experiment. If we don't, then we sunset this. Right? So this way we are able to move faster and also try different things.
So as a leader, Jax, is that something you consciously said and chose those words from the point you started the business to even today?
I learned it. I wish I was smart, right? I learned it the hard way, right? Because in my mind, it was always an experiment. For me, like, you've known me, every time I come up with an idea, I go experiment with this. I try it out. And like, it didn't work. I never had an emotional issue of like, didn't work, push it away, and then start something else. But when I started to manage the organization and lead this organization, there were people that were getting emotionally involved in it,
Mm,
which is a good thing, but also a bad thing, right? Like, involved so you can push it forward and faster. That's great. But then the moment you want to pull the plug on it, you want to be able to detach yourself and attach yourself to another one to make that happen, right?
Yeah, we were doing a session earlier this week, and we were talking about how culture is built, and it's built by the leaders, and you don't always realize that your own behaviors, the way you think, creates the culture. So, but it sounds like you ran into, now you had to teach others the way you think.
Yes. One thing, you assume a lot of things, right? Oh, everybody is thinking like me. Like, no, they're not. Every individual has their own pattern of thinking and own methodology of arriving and analyzing things. The moment you understand that, and like, all right, I need to explain this much more clearly. And my chairman is always the one who, and I'll give him the full credit for this, right? Like, I will call him and I will start rambling on things, and he'll say, like, Jags, slow down. What are we talking about here? And I assumed that he knew because he's a chairman, he should know everything about the company. No, he's got 10 other companies that he's managing, he's overseeing. He's like, slow down, give me the context and give me the content, and then what are we discussing about it?
Yeah, and people take that for granted, like that skill. Because I will sometimes say, now batting out of left field is the term, because someone will come in and because they're deep into the problem, right? They've been working on it, they know what's going on, and they just assume the next person is right there. And I'm like, I got no context. You got to stop. Let me get on the same page with you, and then I can go fast with you.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So, what are some of the experience? I'd love to know if you're willing to share. You learned by the experiment things, that people learn differently. What were some other examples you might have where you realized that people did not think and act the same way you did and respond?
So, I was part of the customer success organization at HP and before that, right? So customers always are a priority, and this is something that you and I share very deeply, right?
Hmm.
When a customer email comes through, a customer communication comes to you, the answer may take a longer time, the solution may take a longer time, but you need to instantly respond to that and acknowledge that, hey, I got it, I'm looking at it, or I've got a team assigned to it. You got to acknowledge that.
Yep.
Again, this is the folks assuming, oh yeah, they know, they sent the email, we got it, we should be able to we will take care of it, and they know that. Like, no, they don't know that. Email is a one-way communication. Unless you reply to it, then they don't know. Right? That's something that we knew, and that's how we operated. And when I came here, when I was with Latent, I had to explain that to the team and say, like,
Yep.
acknowledge, tell them that you're looking into it, and then get back to them with the result. Be in constant communication. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and what I'm hearing you say, and you mentioned a little bit earlier, is you put yourself in their shoes to think about where they're coming from, what they're thinking about, how they're feeling.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
And is that something you remember every day, like, or do you find with the pressure it gets hard at times to?
Getting to the basics is always hard because you are also running 100 miles an hour, and I travel quite extensively, and trying to find the time, like in between airplanes and like your Uber rides and your Lyft rides and in between meetings, like you're trying to check, and you don't want to become the bottleneck, but at the same time some things need like a contextual explanation for the team before you can give them directions and stuff. So I tend to get on phone calls quickly, so I have everybody's phone number, and I will, like, if I call, I ask people, like, please drop and give me the 2 minutes so that I may not have another time to call you, right? So we work that way to get that context. When you speak, you can convey that emotion, convey that context pretty quickly. Then putting it in an email does not carry an emotion, or a Slack message does not carry an emotion. How much ever emojis you add.
It's true. You mean the smiley doesn't really come across the right way? So, we've talked a bit about AI, the pace at which things are happening now, and there's a constant pressure to move faster because we've got AI, right? But how do you help your team keep up with the pace without burning them out or outpacing their ability to grow with the business? How do you think about that, and how do you help them in that journey?
I don't know if I'm helping them or not, but I consume a lot of information, right? I consume a lot of news articles, and I'm plugged into to different circles that give me different types of information that come through. So when I get that, I use myself as a filter, and then I feed that to the team, not as a mechanism. And I've clearly stated this, and I keep repeating this to the organization, right? Like, if I'm saying something does not mean that you go act on it. It is just an information sharing. So I'm helping you grow your knowledge around the topic that I'm looking at. So you have some sort of a mind space with me around that. Yep. What you act on has to come from your managers. That's what is sprint plan, whatever target that we are going after from a sales perspective. All of that comes from your management. Just because I have direct access to you doesn't mean that I'm going to give you tasks directly. That's not my job. I'm consuming something and providing that information. So that's one thing that sets up. Second thing, I have roundtables at multiple skip levels. I don't have managers in that meeting. I have only individual contributors directly talking to me. We do multiple roundtables every month. I used to do one-on-ones before when we were small, like when we were 10 people, I could meet with everybody one-on-one. And as we grew, I can't do that. So I do these roundtables. So I have the pulse of the organization, and the organization has direct access to me as well. So they can speak openly without being worried about what their manager is going to say. Right? It's just human nature, right? Not that my managers are bad. It's just the human nature that they would shut down. So in those spaces, we discuss around okay, what do we see? What is real? What is hype? Because I have a bunch of smart PhDs, masters guys in my team. They're all more educated than I am, right? I'm the dumbest one in the team. So I ask them those questions of what is real? What is hype? Where do they see themselves? And I let them choose what they want to apply. And then my goal is always to push them a little bit further. If they say, oh, yeah, I can do 10 minutes a mile, I'm like, how about 8 minutes? Can you try that? So that is the way I push them. And they're like, yeah, I can do that. I can try that, right? So giving them the courage and then that encouragement to do that.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I heard, and if we unpack this, because it is so powerful, is what you're sharing is how you think, how you lead. So you're giving them insight into your philosophies. And that's something that I'm really passionate about, of helping leaders define what their style is.
Yes.
And knowing that you love to grab this information, disseminate it. But the fact that you're taking that, and know some people their tendency would be to act on it and to listen to you and not your managers, that understanding is powerful. And then you're empowering them to know that don't listen to me. Right. I applaud you on that, because that's so important, that as leaders, we have to understand our actions, does drive behaviors.
Yes. Absolutely.
So I think that's fantastic. And I love the skip levels, because what you can learn by talking that first level. Now, will you bring that information back to your managers if it's in an anonymous way?
Absolutely. I definitely bring that up, and we discuss. And if there are certain changes that we need to make, we do that. And even our coding assistant engagement, right? It came through these roundtables, and I brought it up to the leadership level, and we decided, okay, this is how we're going to set up a pilot, and I let the leadership team run with that.
I love it. Yeah, and so it's empowering everyone on it. Ralph says communication's so key, and he's loving the way you do
Yeah.
that. Rohit has a question here, and I think I'm going to interpret what I think he was asking. But if you had to say that, like, the one leadership skill that every manager needs to hone in on or improve, what do you think it is? What's the most important thing?
Communication. Communication is the key thing, right? Like, I'll add one more to the thing. So every Sunday, I write a weekly summary for the entire organization. So I've been doing this for 4 years now. I summarize all the activities that have happened on my end, right? Like from my visibility, what I have done, I summarize. Transparency is key in the organization as a startup. You want to run 100 miles an hour. You want people to trust you to do that. You need to be transparent, and I'm very transparent around that. So I share everything that has happened to me, good, bad, and the ugly, beginning of the week, and then also gives my reflections on my week. And now I've asked my leadership team to join, and this year they have joined, and they also write their pieces, and we send this out as a big weekly summary to the team. So everybody that comes in, a lot of people read this on Sunday night, but most people come in on Monday morning, and this is the first thing that they open and read.
I love it. Do you also talk about what's top of mind for the week coming up, or like how do you bring in the big rocks to make sure you've got the focus on the current experiment?
Absolutely, absolutely. So the first half of or the first three-fourths of it is the weekly summary, and then the last one, I have an in closing section. In closing, I talk about, okay, this is where I'm going, this is where I will be, and these are the things that we need to be focused on to do. And each one of the leaders cover that. Like the sales leader covers his piece in there, the marketing leader covers that, the product engineering leader cover that as well. So.
That's fantastic. And, for the audience that knows the E3 leadership code, you're really touching on all of it, right? Expressing the end vision, where are you going, what you're doing, you're building the trust engagement with your team, and you're executing, right? So many. What was
I
that?
learned from the best. I had to, I don't know if you remember this, Kathy. I had you for my leadership call. You came and spoke to my team about 2, 3 years ago when you were just getting set up with E equals Y. So we took a lot of those lessons and we are actually implementing it.
I love it. Thank you. So yeah, because I mean that is what drives results. Now you said a word that I think is so important, which is trust. And I think you can't hire trust. You can hire people that but you might already have the trust. What's some of the other things? So you talked about communication. You talked about skip levels. How do you build that trust with someone new coming into the organization?
See, when somebody comes in, they don't know what their left, right, up, down limits are. Right? A lot of people are afraid of stepping on other people's toes. Right? Like, where does their limit begin and end? The first thing that we say is like, look, we all wear multiple hats. This is about the organization being successful. When the organization is successful, each individual is going to be successful. When you join a startup, the goal is not to grow up there. It is about how do you build below yourself, grow your organization underneath you, so you're growing your leadership skills along the way, right? So I just don't say that. I give them the tools and give them the authority. Like, don't come and ask me for permission. Come and tell me what you have done, and if something is wrong, that's fine. We categorize it as an experiment. We move on. We give that, and then there are people that shine in that type of environment. Then there are others like, okay, hey, I like this. I'm going to work really, really hard on this, but I don't want to do other things. That's fine too. Give them that tooling, give them that help that they need in that space, and let them do that. So that's the way I build trust with my team.
And do you find your style is something people are comfortable with off the bat?
They're surprised. they are totally shocked and like, you mean you're you're going to share that information with me? And that like they're shocked, and then it takes them. It's like, what does he have as an ulterior motive?
Mm.
Right? Is he giving this as to get something else from me? I'm like, no, there's nothing. This is what you see is what you get. And my whole goal is like, how do I create a larger enterprise value with this company? End of the day, we are working for money here, no questions, right? Like there's a mission that we are achieving, but there is a profitability in mind as well. Never be dissuaded by other things, right? Like that's profit is why you set up a for-profit corporation. Right?
Sure, absolutely. You got to deliver results.
Exactly, deliver the results and make yourself like. And I've told this to the team: work hard, and I will ensure that this company makes a huge financial impact on your life.
I love it. So, how long do you think? So, what is it that gets people over that hump that they believe you and they trust and they get it, and that it's not just words?
I think it takes a few weeks to a month, about a month and a half. They love, and the culture is you see it through the organization. It's not just me or my co-founder, right? Like you see it with the engineering leaders, with the sales leaders, and everybody. And we have a huge set of veterans in the team. Since we work with defense, we have veterans in the team. When they come join us after retiring, they don't feel like they've joined a commercial company because they feel the same camaraderie, the same trust. The key thing in defense is the trust. Your unit, you need to trust your partners.
Yep.
We have that built
Yeah.
in.
Well, actually, the military. You're right. I mean, the military leadership styles, I think, is really powerful. A lot of people assume too often that it's command and control, and it's the complete opposite.
It is.
Right. It is making sure that everyone's trusting, that they're in it together. They have a one mission, and you've got to protect each other to get to that mission.
Yes, exactly.
I love it. So Ralph actually has a question here. I don't know if it's something you can share. Do you feel that your retention rate is higher as a result of what you're doing?
If I look at a certain sector of people, absolutely, it's really high.
Yeah.
I have had. So the average tenure of we are a 7-year-old company. Average tenure of folks in the company is around 5 to 6 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah, because people that have joined, the ones that joined earlier on, they are still there.
Yep.
People that joined along the way, they are still there. We've had transitions because of certain folks wanting to move from Princeton to New York City.
Mm.
Right. So those are like some of the family reasons that people have left the company.
Excellent. So would you, if I give you the statement that when you take a human approach, you will have high performance.
Absolutely.
Care about your people, and that's what drives your results.
Yes.
Excellent. So I have a question now. This is I have two more. So this one, as you grow, right? And I mean, you've had multiple growth years, and you're going to continue to grow. Do you envision your style changing much?
No. So the challenge that I'm going to face is how do I continue the style with a growing organization? And I don't think we all have 24 hours. That's not going to increase.
Right.
There is some times that I have to sleep. So it's about how do I prioritize certain activities and how do I keep this culture, keep this way of operations, my MO, continuing with the larger organizations. I learned from doing one-on-ones to roundtables helped. And I'm able to meet everybody in 2 weeks' time, right? Like I can do 2, 3 roundtables and I'm able to meet with the team. But now, if we double this organization, how is that going to happen, right? Like now, do my frequency go from a monthly to a quarterly? Then, if that, this is where like the information latency is going to be an impact here.
Yep.
Monthly, I'm able to meet with the team and I'm able to course correct things. But if I'm meeting quarterly, then there are changes that are going to happen, right? So I'm still thinking through that, and I need to figure that out quickly as we grow.
Well, and I think your communication that you're doing weekly, and if that's something you're sharing, right? That's number one. That still gets through. And I
Yep.
think, continue the communication. That's, so important. And empowering your next levels of management, right? To do the same thing. That helps you. So, in this day and age, so a lot of leaders are dealing with AI and the what's real, what's hype. What advice do you have for a leader grappling with AI in this day and age and how to move fast but keep everyone coming along with them?
Oof. So AI is not a fad. It's not going to go away. It's if you take back to the days of when electricity was introduced, invented, and even the telephone, right? Like people thought that was a fad. It's going to go away. It's not. It's going to become absolutely critical to everything that we do. You have to change your mindset towards that. How do I see my life in the day of AI, in the age of AI? First, come to an agreement with that.
Yeah.
Once you have that acknowledgement and agreement, then you can start to understand how it's going to impact your organization. I think that would be my one piece of wisdom advice.
I think it's fantastic. And then follow all the leadership advice you gave on here: transparency, trust, communication. You cannot communicate enough, especially in this rate of change that we're going through.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, Jags, I can't thank you enough for joining. What you've shared is inspiring, a little humbling, I will say as well. And if anyone is interested in learning a little more about the E3 Leadership Code, A Human Approach to High Performance, you'll be happy to know that the book is now available for pre-order. So you can visit kathyeastwood.com website and learn more about the book. And really hear more. Like what Jags talked about today is the basics around good leadership. And that's what drives growth in companies and allows companies to continue to meet their goals and do great things for others. So thank you all for joining us. Jags, thank you again. And we will see you all next week. Take care.